When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Aloe or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling, and for shoppers, buying, simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does online business better than Shopify. It's home of Shop Pay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. That's shopify.com/income.
Hey, it's Paris. You know I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me, serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
This content may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion advised.
And the more she screamed in pain, the more I twisted. Like I wasn't in control at all.
We were deep in the bayou. The shack was the only solid ground for a while in any direction. Still, the feeling wouldn't go away. Then I felt it.
She never spoke or even looked up at me. Who was she?
From Killer Podcasts. True tales of horror, bizarre happenings, unexplainable events. This is Disturbed. Hello, and welcome back to the show. This week, we have 4 stories of evil spirits and their unlucky victims. First, we'll head to Ohio, where the ghosts of tragedy haunt the living. Narrated by Daryl Ellis, from Reddit user Skyfully.
For the first 13 years of my life, my parents and I bounced between Ohio, where my mom's family is, and West Virginia, where my dad's family is. I've been having what can only be described as supernatural experiences for as long as I can remember, both in Ohio and West Virginia. It started when I was really young. When I was 2, I was already able to hold nearly complete conversations because my parents didn't use baby talk with me. As a result, I began to ask questions. Some were just annoying little kid questions, but others my parents had no real answers for. I would ask, why can't I use a big girl cup? And in the same sentence, I would ask, why is there a blue ball in the corner of my room at night? Most of the time, my parents were dismissive. You were just having a dream, they'd say. And at that age, I didn't have any interest in pushing further. When I was 3 or 4, we moved into a 2-story townhouse in Ohio. I wasn't usually afraid of the dark, but in that house, I demanded that my father read to me or stay in my room until I fell asleep. The source of my fear was a hallway that I could see directly from my bed. On a nightly basis, after my parents had gone to bed, I'd see a woman. She She was always soaking wet, pacing the hall while sobbing her eyes out. She never spoke or even looked up at me. As time went on, I was plagued with the same questions. Who was she? Did my parents let her in? She's crying so loudly. How wasn't this waking my parents up? When I asked my parents these things, they told me it was just a nightmare. You might be thinking they were right, or that the woman was my mother. But my mom later admitted to seeing the stranger in the shower once. She said it happened while she was home alone and stepped into the bathroom. As she pulled the curtain back to adjust the water, she caught sight of someone else in the mirror, standing just outside the door. The woman's hair was stringy and wet, her skin pale, her expression blank. My mom turned around, heart pounding, only to find no one there. She never brought it up again until I was older, but it rattled her enough that she avoided showering in that bathroom at night. There were nights when I would wake up and feel my sheets clinging to me, wet from sweat and fear. My heart would race the moment I heard the first soft sobs echoing down the hall, growing louder and more frantic as she paced. I'd close my eyes, clench my fists, and beg whatever it was to go away. But she never did. I tried closing the door to the hallway before going to sleep, but it just made things worse. I'd still hear things happening outside the door, but not being able to see what was going on made me even more paranoid. But it wasn't just the hallway that was strange. In my parents' room, there was this old vanity with a mirror my mother kept covered up with a cloth. I was afraid of it, so that's where she hid gum and candy. One day while she was asleep, I decided to try to steal a piece of gum. I went upstairs into her room and found that the cloth had fallen off of it. While looking at the vanity, I swear to God, I saw the woman who roamed the halls at night sitting in the mirror looking at me. I screamed and started crying, alerting my mother, who quickly ran into the room and threw a blanket over the vanity. She promptly explained to never go in her room alone. What scared me most wasn't that the woman in the mirror looked sad or angry. It was how calm she seemed, like she'd been there for a long time, just waiting for someone to notice. She sat with her hands folded in her lap, drenched as always, and though she didn't speak, I felt her trying to, like she was pushing words toward me that I couldn't hear. I think it was the first time I understood fear as something quiet, heavy, waiting. The rest of my time at that house was a blur. My mom found as many excuses as she could to take me to my grandparents, just because she wanted us to spend as little time as possible at our own home. When I was 6, we moved back to West Virginia into a place 2 houses down from where my grandparents lived. I saw random orbs and apparitions there, but I became accustomed to them. Not long after, we moved into the house directly next to my grandparents. That house was built in the 30s, and it showed. It had no central heat or AC and super thin glass. The people who lived there before us weren't just certified hoarders, but they also left some very curious renovations behind. One of the fireplaces was boarded up. All of the bedrooms had padlocks, And the floor of the laundry room was so thin that you had to walk in a certain way to ensure the wood wouldn't just give out. But the crawl space was the worst, though. The door to enter it was on the back of the house, and when we moved in, my dad had to use a crowbar to break off the padlock on it. Inside, there was no floor besides dirt, and it smelled of mildew. You're probably thinking, well, that's what a crawl space is, and you'd be correct. But it's what we found inside that was the issue. The past owners had a lot of kids, more than they could handle. They had 6 children, 2 parents, and a grandparent living in that 2-bedroom hoarder house. Apparently, they thought it was a great idea to make this crawl space a bedroom for their youngest boy. When we opened it, we found a bare mattress, a small desk, a few toys, and some disturbingly sad drawings. I should mention that in West Virginia, temperatures get below freezing in the winter. They had a boy most likely locked down there, with no power, no heat, and a slanted dirt floor. As soon as my parents realized what they were looking at, they had me go play at my grandparents' house until the cops came to document it all. I never found out what happened to that family, whether CPS had already been involved or if they just picked up and vanished. But something about that crawl space stayed with me. It was like the dirt itself remembered. I always felt like the air was thicker back there, like the sadness hadn't left. I think that's when I started to feel followed, not watched, followed. Immediately after moving in, I began to have actual nightmares where I was being stalked or chased. I also started going to church with my grandmother. She was devoutly Southern Baptist and living in that area, so church was really one of the only activities available. Some part of me hoped that reading the Bible and praying would make my nightmares go away, but it didn't. Every night I would say my prayers, sing hymns, and read my Bible. I even slept with rosaries that my Catholic godmother gave me. But things only got worse. Every night, the knob of my closet door would slowly fall out. It was solid metal, so it would make this loud clanking noise as it hit the carpet. I would lay there completely still, with my eyes fixed on the door. It was normally really difficult to open because the carpet in front of it was too high. But I'd watch the door open all by itself. Inside, I'd see a boy. I vividly remember him. His head was too large for his body. His hair was short, and he had greasy black bangs. In fact, every part of him looked greasy. He stayed huddled in a ball, but he would turn to look at me. When he did, I'd look right into his eyes. They were twice or triple the size they should be, and while every part of him was black, his eyes were almost blindingly white. He would look at me and make a face of despair, like a cry for help. I remember being so terrified, I usually couldn't move. This was no nightmare or sleep paralysis, though. Multiple times I sat up and tried to examine him further. Sometimes I'd gather the courage to run out of my room. I would beg in tears to not sleep in my room. I told my mother about it so many times, she was actually becoming concerned, either for my mental health or that I was somehow right. One night, I was allowed to stay at my grandparents' house, and my mother slept in my room. That night, she saw it. She saw him. My parents were not religious or spiritual, but after that experience, she contacted my godparents, who came along with their priest to bless the room and the house. Unfortunately, the blessing didn't work. Just like my prayer, it was almost like it made things worse. Books started falling off shelves, and I would wake up with bruises and scratches. Eventually, we couldn't take it anymore. We left that place behind and moved in with my grandparents in Ohio until we could find another place. I confirmed all of this with my mom years later. At the time, she didn't want to scare her kid, but she was terrified too. Since then, enough time has passed that those encounters don't torment me like they used to. Sometimes, though, when I'm back in West Virginia, I can still feel that boy's presence in random closets. Like he's following me.
Next, a vicious spirit uses a human puppet to do his bidding. Narrated by Gregory James, from disturbed listener Cole.
It was Memorial Weekend, and my family and I had traveled to visit the rest of the family for the holiday. My mom wanted to go see her grandmother's grave, and I did too, because I had known her before she passed. We went to the store and bought some flowers and a little light-up sunflower to leave at her headstone. When we arrived at the cemetery, everything seemed normal. My mom wanted to get a picture of me and my sister by the gravestone. She took the photo, but when we looked at it, something was off. Our eyes didn't look right. They looked almost black. But we felt fine, so for some reason we just shrugged it off and moved on. After that, my mom said she wanted to go see the old farm where she grew up, where she lived with her parents and grandparents. I was down to go. When we got there, the place was mostly gone. The house was still there, but the front porch had collapsed, and a couple of hunting cabins were set up behind it. I got out of my truck and walked up to one of the cabins to see if anyone was there, just in case we needed permission to look around. I knocked. No answer. Then I opened the screen door and knocked on the main door. That's when I heard it. Footsteps inside. Like someone walking across old hardwood flooring. Then a screeching sound. And then nothing. I blacked out. Later, after we got home, my fiance told me that after I knocked the second time, I had walked around the house and disappeared out of view. She told my mom that if I didn't come back soon, she was gonna blow the horn. Right then, I spun around and walked straight back to my truck like nothing had happened. I don't remember any of that. That night, we went to my buddy's grandma's house so he could grab a few things, and I started telling another friend what had happened earlier. As I was talking, I got chills all over. My head felt fuzzy, and then, without warning, I grabbed my friend by the throat and nearly shoved him off the porch, and that porch is at least 6 feet off the ground. It would not have been a soft landing. Then I came to again. I had a splitting headache, and that wasn't even the worst part. I was told that during another blackout, I grabbed my fiancée by the wrist and twisted it almost a full 360 degrees, nearly broke it. And the more she screamed in pain, the more I twisted, like I wasn't in control at all. Eventually, I felt better, and we decided to go home. I asked my fiancée to drive, just in case something else happened. We had only made it about a minute down the road when it all came flooding back. The second knock, the footsteps, the screech. And then I remembered what I'd seen. Through the back window of the house, I saw a face. Not a person, just a face. A man with long gray hair, eyes full of something evil, and a smile I'll never forget. If you've seen the movie It, the clown Pennywise, that's the kind of smile it was. Razor-sharp teeth, long as daggers, and his face came rushing toward me. That's when I blacked out. When we got home, I told my mom about it. She went quiet. Then she said, "The only man I remember ever being around that property with long gray hair was a neighbor nobody liked, and he got shot and killed during deer season one year." That stunned me. It lined up too well. But it wasn't over. For about an hour, I kept blacking out, and every time I would go after someone in my family, like something inside me wanted to hurt them. My mom finally grabbed a picture of Jesus that she had hanging on the wall. She told me to touch it. I couldn't. My body wouldn't let me. I fought against it with everything I had. Eventually, I pushed through and touched the picture, and then I passed out cold. Later, my mom told me I'd been unconscious for about 30 seconds. But when I woke up, I was finally me again. Whatever was in me, it was gone. But here's the thing. I still feel something. Like a strange pull. Like something wants me to go back to that house. And the worst part? I kind of want to.
Next, a haunted bayou threatens the lives of two outsiders. Narrated by Amanda McKnight from Reddit user Signal Motor 6609.
So I'm a medical examiner, and I've run into 1,001 situations that involve the paranormal. Sometimes it's me, sometimes it's someone in my morgue or a professional acquaintance, but it's something we all encounter in this line of work. My work can take me all over the country, but one particular case took me to the New Orleans area. The crime scene I was working on involved an alleged serial killer. The victims had matching markings and similar appearances. A colleague of mine in the New Orleans office had been handling the autopsies, so I decided to meet her for lunch to go over our thoughts and figure out how to inform detectives, if our suspicions were confirmed. The investigators were aware of my visit in theory, but nothing had been confirmed yet. We met up for lunch in downtown New Orleans. We sat and chatted about the case, and after we finished eating, she offered to give me a tour of the city. Eventually, we ended up taking a road trip around the surrounding area. Her friend had a shack out in the bayou, just a small storage place for hunting and fishing gear. I'd never been out that way before, so we decided to check it out. It was around 3 p.m. when we arrived at the shack. We sat on the small deck outside, having a few drinks, just enjoying the quiet. That's when I started to feel off. Not scared, not cold, just watched, like someone was there. Not something, someone. I scanned the area. Nothing, no one. And how could there be? We were deep in the bayou. The shack was the only solid ground for a while in any direction, and the only path was the one in front of us. Still, the feeling wouldn't go away. Then I felt it. A cold pressure on my left shoulder. I turned, nothing there. She screamed. A high-pitched, blood-curdling scream. I jumped up and bolted about 20 yards before stopping and turning around. She slammed into me mid-panic, and we both went crashing down. And we ended up with actual injuries from the fall. I landed on my right side, but somehow I fractured my left clavicle. It was the same shoulder where I felt the pressure. She didn't break any bones, but she went completely mute for 3 weeks. 3 weeks. And that scream she let out, it wasn't enough to cause vocal damage. Not without something else, some other kind of trauma. To this day, I don't know exactly what happened out there, but she swears she saw something. She says it was a woman in white. Her left clavicle was clearly broken. Her arm just hung there uselessly. And her mouth was wide open like she was screaming, but no sound came out. Just silent. She swears by it. She swears on everything. And after that day, she refused to return anywhere near that place. She won't go within 10 miles of it. If she's ever called for a case nearby, she sends the assistant medical examiner in her place. She's never gone back. And I don't know what she saw. She's the only one who saw anything. All I felt was the pressure and then the panic. Maybe there's a logical explanation, maybe not. Maybe it was something about the place or someone tied to that land, but I've searched for answers and I still haven't found any. I still don't know who or what we met that day in the bayou. And I don't know if I'll ever get an answer.
Finally, a local legend rears its ugly head. Narrated by Kim Miller, from Reddit user My Darling Darkness.
I've had many paranormal encounters over the years. I'm usually kind of amused by them, in a frightening sort of way, if that makes any sense. This one time, though, was pure terror for me. For context, I need to explain our local legend. I'm from a tiny town you've only heard of if you live here, live nearby, or know someone who does. On the outskirts of this town is where I live, and where you'll find a narrow, winding back road known simply as the Bank. This road is extremely tight, the kind of narrow where if another car's coming, you have to lay over as far as you can just to squeeze past. On one side, there's thick, overgrown forest. On the other, a steep drop-off that leads straight to a creek. Local legend says that about 60 years ago, a woman was driving this road late at night, all alone. It said she fell asleep at the wheel and veered off the road over the bank. Her car was found near the creek in a twisted, mangled heap. But she, or her body, were never recovered. Some say she went through the windshield and into the water. Others believe she climbed out and stumbled in. Either way, it's believed she met with a watery grave. And since the creek in that area is said to be bottomless, no one ever found her. Ever since then, reports have started rolling in. People driving the road after dark claim to see a woman standing by the side, only for her to vanish when they slowed down. Others swore a woman would appear inside their car as they drove down the dark road alone. There were so many stories, she became known as the Lady of the Bank. Fast forward to a few months ago. I had been at a party in the area. I was told there had been a wreck on the main road and it was temporarily blocked off. I was tired and just wanted to get home, though I felt awful for those involved. I decided to take the bank as a detour. It would lead me right past the accident and come out just a couple miles from my house. Now, I've driven that road before, many times actually, mostly during the day, a couple of times after dark, but never alone. I grew up hearing stories about the Lady of the Bank, but honestly, that wasn't even on my mind that night. I had other, more pressing things to think about. I had music playing softly, and I was focused on the curves in the road. The only thing I really worried about was deer. That all changed when my heart jumped into my throat. I frantically glanced around the car. Then I saw it. The seatbelt icon on the dash was lit up. The car was warning me that someone didn't have their seatbelt fastened. I was stunned. I checked mine. It was securely fastened. Then the dinging started again. I looked to the passenger seat and nearly passed out. There was a figure sitting there. All I could make out in that moment was long, dark, wet-looking hair hanging over the face. The figure was staring forward through the windshield. I screamed and I slammed on the brakes. The car skidded to a stop and I was thrown forward, then yanked back by my own seatbelt. My ears were ringing. I could hear my heartbeat pounding like a drum. I looked up, slowly turning my head. The passenger seat was empty again. The dinging stopped. The seatbelt light turned off. I didn't hesitate after that. I slammed on the gas. Deer were no longer my biggest concern on the bank. I made it home without incident, unless you count the lingering anxiety attack that hit the moment I walked through the door. I've told this story to a few friends, some family, and a handful of locals, and they all say the same thing. The Lady of the Bank tried to hitch a ride home with me that night. And while my heart goes out to her, I will not be offering a ride anytime soon. I won't be driving that road after dark again. Not alone. Not ever.
Want more Disturbed? Check out our Patreon for member-exclusive content, early merch access, and other cool perks. I'm your host, Doug Bailey, and this has been Disturbed, a production of Killer Podcasts and part of the Evergreen Network. For more paranormal and true crime shows, visit killerpodcasts.com. Follow our social channels at Disturbed Podcast on Instagram or Disturbed_pod on Twitter. If you enjoyed the show, please consider subscribing and reviewing on your favorite listening platform. Share your own true horror story at disturbedpodcast.com. Music by Epidemic Sound and by Carl Casey at White Bat Audio. Our producer is Declan Roars. Audio engineering by Nathan Corson and Will Prince. Executive producer Bridget Coyne. Until next time, stay safe out there.